I want to talk about the inaugural UFC Women's Featherweight Championship fight that will be in Brooklyn at UFC 208. Holly Holm against Germaine de Randamie. Happy for those two women. Crazy in some respects that Holly Holm, after back-to-back losses, is getting a title shot here. But for Chris Cyborg, right, we have both defended her for a long time in certain respects. And I think this decision by Chris Cyborg to not take a title fight here is borderline indefensible. And I know she is muscle-bound and she power lifts, and that gives her a lot of confidence to go in there and to beat the snot out of these other women. But if you can't make 145 pounds on 8 or 9 weeks' notice, you know, I don't know, man. I lost a little respect for her in the way this all shook out, because I know it's easy for people to bang on the promotion, but, you know, they did what was the right thing on 2 occasions here to offer her a featherweight championship fight. And, you know, because she can't put the barbells down, she can't take the fight.
Well, listen, I got to agree with you, and people are going to be like, oh, you know, now they're really catering to, you know, they're speaking for the UFC and here and that. Listen, title fights come around every so often, man. You know, when I was offered the fight against Sean Shirk, you know, to fight for the belt at 155 pounds, I wasn't ready. It was a relatively quick turnaround. But you know what? I knew that those opportunities don't come around very often, and I took it. You got to take it. It doesn't matter. Get it done. They created a division for you. They created a belt for you. You are the best 145-pounder in the world, Chris Cyborg. Take the fight. I mean, I can't agree more. I think that it's a shame that she wasn't able to take it. I still think that she'll get, you know, she'll get a shot obviously later on down the line. Right. But it's still not the same to be the first 145-pound champion, female champion in the UFC. I think would have been huge for her. She absolutely deserved it. She turned this down. That's what people need to understand, is that she turned this down not once but twice, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
So that's a shame. I think that Holly Holm and Germaine de Randamie, I think those are probably the other 2 best 145-pounders in the UFC. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for Holm. I think that Germaine de Randamie has done a lot in the UFC. I think she's a tremendous striker. So the fact that they're getting this shot, I think it does make sense, even though Holly Holm has lost her last 2 fights. I think those are 2 women that could certainly make that weight class and be very strong at that weight class. So Chris Cyborg, you know, has to take a rain check here. And it is unfortunate. But for those that are freaking out that Chris Cyborg isn't getting this shot, there's more to the story. And there is more to the story. And in my opinion, Chris Cyborg kind of screwed this up. And I have been a fan of hers. I still am a fan of hers. She just has to wait. Simple as that. But she can't be complaining that they put 2 other women in there for the belt. They have a schedule to do. They have fights to book. And it's simple as that.
And I just don't know why she's bulking up to 185 pounds when she knew that an opportunity like this might come down the chute. Now, the fight that they wanted to do was Germaine de Randamie versus Chris Cyborg. It's also the fight they wanted to do when Cyborg made her UFC debut back at UFC 198. But for Germaine de Randamie, she was competing in Rotterdam. Kenny, we obviously called that fight. And she didn't want to fight Cyborg unless there were championship stakes, because she felt like she was on that short list, and still is, by the way, of bantamweight title contenders. So de Randamie is motivated by the gold. Actually, she's going to get a featherweight championship fight here. But it's tricky, man, because for Chris Cyborg, I feel like, you know, sometimes when the narrative suits her, she'll go with it, and then other times she won't. Like when I'm in the octagon interviewing her after the Lena Landsberg fight, and maybe I shouldn't have said it, but I said, hey, I wish I had a belt for you. She didn't even take the bait. She's like, oh, I don't care about the belt. But then outside the octagon on Twitter, she seems to care about the belt. And then she gets offered a shot at the belt and doesn't take it. So, again, I haven't given a lot of opinions about that. I still believe Chris Cyborg is the best women's mixed martial arts fighter of all time, but very disappointed that she will not compete for the inaugural UFC featherweight championship.